Covering, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. We're looking at North Korea tonight. Going to touch on a couple of other subjects, including that of Russia, Syria, and Qatar. Some very odd things happening over in Qatar, according to Lorenzo, and already happened. But let's go over here to North Korea real quick. RT is reporting North Korea threatens to strike New York in response to a 5-month-old Trump tweet. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. What in the world is wrong with a leader when they are willing to just take and lob off nuclear weapons when somebody tweets something that doesn't go their way? I mean, this is absolutely insane to even think that this type of a leader would do something like that. But then again, think of the mentality of the way people continue to do. Tweets have become a way of attacking each other verbally and amongst many other things, temper tantrums and everything else. And it's not just limited to that of Kim Jong-un of North Korea for acting this way over tweets, but even President Trump says some of the craziest things on tweets. And I'm not against President Trump. I just say it's very strange, very seemingly unpresidential-like or undictatorship-like. Well, I don't know. Maybe for Kim Jong-un that would be normal of a dictator. Who really knows? It's just not normal. But anyway, maybe making ready for the threats, because here we have on 38north.org, they are coming out today saying North Korea, Pyongyang nuclear test site, media report of intensified activity cannot be corroborated, but they are saying that North Korea is getting ready to do something there on their nuclear test site there. It says intensified activity of Pyongyang nuclear test site, indicating Pyongyang may be preparing a 6th nuclear test, which is warned last month was imminent, and that the preparations near the Pyongyang site match those of the past occasions before North Korea conducted a nuclear test. Gosh, can I help but wonder with the way that Kim Jong-un has been doing, that eventually he's going to go beyond the test and actually do something for real. And yet at the same time, as we reported just the other day, the United States has moved their warships out of the region there, at least the 2 aircraft carriers, and maybe not a bit too soon with some of the advanced technology that North Korea is beginning to develop there, and was lobbing out missiles over into the sea there where these carriers were at near the Japanese Sea, the Sea of Japan. Now we're also seeing, as I reported this to you the other day as well, the Chinese moved the Dongfang 21 near the Korean Peninsula. And of course, again, I still do not believe this is something being used against North Korea, but rather as a backup to North Korea in the event that the United States were to launch an attack on North Korea. And you may think that, well, that's not really that big of a deal. But there's something, though, friends, that I think, though, that might just make you change your mind about all of this. And let me just pull over to where this is at. I thought I had it up on my screen here. Ooh, gosh, what did I do with this? Wanted to share with you something here that President Trump had to say. Here we go, right here. President Putin, that is. President Putin recently, one of the comments that he makes here in the interview with Mr. Stone here was very insightful there. He's speaking to Oliver Stone about the Caucasus and how that the United States has been actively participating in trying to destabilize Russia. Now, of course, this has been some time back, but this was something that is still stuck in President Putin's mind, and he's not just letting this go away either. President Putin, he's one, as the old saying is, when it comes to Russians, he doesn't forget, and he's watching the movements of the United States, and this is why we see too that Russia is reaching out to all of the countries that are being basically thrown under the bus by NATO, etc. And of course, Qatar being one of those latest nations that President Putin has reached out to. Now, you have to understand, Qatar, of course, they accuse them of sponsoring terrorism. Sure they do. Absolutely. I mean, come on, let's face it. But the Saudis are the ones that accused them of that. That's what is totally blows your mind away. The Saudis and the Egyptians. Well, the Saudis are probably the #1 terrorist-sponsored state in the world, next to that of maybe well, in fact, unfortunately, the United States has been sponsoring terrorism all over the world. Now, we call it democracy, but are we really there for democracy? You know, and I'm not, you know, I love my country, but unfortunately, I am really ashamed at the way that we have been going, trying to destabilize all these countries in the Middle East. And what for? I mean, this has just really become absolutely insane the way we have been headed. You know, it's one thing if a dictator is brutalizing his people, and, well, like in the case of Kim Jong-un, brutalizing his own people, and absolutely no freedom whatsoever. And the U.S. wanted to take and try to free the people. Well, you don't go in there and nuke them. That's one way. You're not going to free them by nuking them. Then you just kill them all, you know. But the thing is we go to a country like Syria that was actually more, wasn't really a democracy. It is of some sort, you might say, under President Bashar al-Assad. But the thing was, it was a country that was tolerant to both Jews and Christians and Muslims alike. All three of the religions were able to get along peacefully. Well, that was until the United States decided to work with the Saudis and the Turks. And I don't think the Turks are anything good. They're not. The Turks are just like the Saudis. They're also #1 sponsors of terrorism. And so Qatar is just a little nation. Well, it uses its money to sponsor terrorism. And yeah, Russia has turned a helping hand towards Qatar because they have been ousted from the family, you might say. Well, speaking of Qatar, though, got a big issue going on in Qatar. Already happened on their website there. Shared this video right here on his website. This was actually allegedly a very large military convoy, a Qatarian military convoy that has just returned back from the border of the Saudi border. No reasoning for this, why they were returning from the Saudi border. No one is really saying anything about this other than the fact that this is the Qatarian military that has left the Saudi border. Maybe tensions are starting to simmer down some. I don't really know the answer. The only reason I can see why they would move their forces away from the border. Of course, the Turkish also talking about sending their military in to Qatar as well. All going to end up into a big mess over there in the Middle East, which I think this is exactly what some of the NATO partners really wanted in the first place. This has just really gotten out of hand. Sputnik News is reporting also that Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, says Trump has no authorization to target Assad nor the Iranian proxies in Syria. Now, that was an about-face. President Trump has no congressional authorization to order strikes against Damascus or Iran's proxies in Syria, according to Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. President Donald Trump has no congressional authorization, he says. I would agree with that, Tillerson said when asked if there was no legal authorization from Congress to target Syrian President Bashar Assad or Iranian proxies. Tillerson stressed that the U.S. mission and purpose in Syria has not changed from its focus on defeating Daesh. The U.S.-led coalition has been fighting the terrorist group in Syria since 2014 without UN approval or Assad's request. On June 8th, the coalition bombed pro-Damascus forces in Syria near the town of Al-Tat. On June 6th, the coalition conducted a strike on pro-Syrian government forces as they entered a deconfliction zone and allegedly posed threat. On May 18th, the coalition hit a pro-Assad fighters near Al-Tant for the first time. On April the 6th, U.S. Navy destroyers fired 59 cruise missiles at Aish Sharit air base in western Syria, calling their attack a warning to Damascus following a chemical weapons incident in Idlib province, which Washington claimed was carried out by the Syrian government forces. And of course, we can go on and on and on. I'll put a link to Sputnik's report in here. But the U.S. has targeted the Syrian government on multiple occasions, not to mention the fact that the U.S. government has aided and funded all the different groups that are fighting against President Bashar al-Assad in the first place. So if you really don't have any authorization to go after Assad in Damascus, then isn't it still considered an accessory to the crime by arming all the terrorists that are fighting against the government to overthrow the government? And according to the Syrian reports and Russian reports, 35 nationalities are fighting inside of Syria. Of According to President Bashar al-Assad, he said it's not a civil war when you've got 35 different nations fighting against one government inside their own country. He said that is not a civil war. I have to agree with the man on that. He's pretty much telling the truth about that. Anyway, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Thank you for watching. Support the work we're doing here. You can look right here on our news channel just above the subscribe button. Strange, very seemingly unpresidential-like or undictatorship-like. Well, I don't know. Maybe for Kim Jong-un that would be normal of a dictator. Who really knows? It's just not normal. But anyway, maybe making ready for the threats, because here we have on 38north.org, they are coming out today saying North Korea, Pyongyang News Live. We're looking at North Korea tonight, going to touch on a couple of other subjects, including that of Russia, Syria, and Qatar. Some very odd things happening over in Qatar, according to Lorenzo, and already happened. But let's go over here to North Korea real quick. RT is reporting North Korea threatens to strike New York in response to a 5-month-old Trump tweet. I mean, these have become a way of attacking each other verbally and amongst many other things, temper tantrums and everything else. And it's not just limited to that of Kim Jong-un of North Korea for acting this way over tweets, but even President Trump says some of the craziest things on tweets. And I'm not against President Trump. I just say it's very covering. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israel. You've got to be kidding me. What in the world is wrong with a leader when they are willing to just take and lob off nuclear weapons when somebody tweets something that doesn't go their way? I mean, this is absolutely insane to even think that this type of a leader would do something like that. But then again, think of the mentality of the way people continue to do. Tweet